Welcome back to the David Feldman Show, davidfeldmanshow.com. That was a pre-tape with Pete Dominic, and I'll be on his show.
I was going to say, how did he get the subtitles on there already? It's a pre-tape. That explains it.
By the way, sorry to keep you waiting. We're running 15 minutes behind. We're going to go, if it's okay with Dr. Hirschenfeld, we'll go till a quarter of. Is that okay? Can you spare an extra?
My rates go up by 50%.
Okay. Time and a half.
In August, I mean, I am honored to be speaking to a Freudian psychoanalyst and his son in August. This is.
Can I be a little picky here?
Yes, sir.
So it's either this ox or these oxen.
Oh. Okay. Fact check me before we start, Dr. Hirschenfeld, because I want to talk about memory. I want to talk about Andrew Cuomo.
I want to talk about last week. I thought it was a breakthrough.
Go ahead.
We saved a relationship.
Yes, we did.
Dad, can you get your mic up? Is there a way to get a little more volume? I feel like you're muffled. I want to hear what you're saying.
Interesting choice of words, Dr. Hirschenfeld. He said, can you get your mic
Yes. Yeah, let's see.
What would...
Don't worry about it. Just keep talking.
I find that curious that you said, Dad, can you get your mic up? And I just find that choice of words telling. Yes, John Ross and I had a fight in front of you. I rewatched it.
It looked real.
It was real.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wouldn't have happened between me and you or me and Ethan because I haven't known you for 40 years. But I've known John. Explain that, please.
How about love and hate are very close to each other?
How about Sylvester Stallone and Apollo Creed? Those guys didn't know each other very long, and they really almost killed each other.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But they started out hating each other.
Right.
Then they became...
That's right. Hey, stop that. Oh, God.
No, it's dog. You're dyslexic. Oh, God.
Right. I'm sorry. Okay, I'll be right back.
A couple quick questions, some fact checking.
Yes.
If you get into a fist fight, like Apollo Creed and Rocky, after a fist fight, it is not uncommon for men to become friendly after a barroom brawl, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Wait, I don't know anything about that. You can have a brawl and then get friendly with the guy?
Yeah.
Wow. And then you buy each other drinks and...
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know about that.
Because, I'm not saying it's homoerotic. I'm saying everything is homoerotic. That's just part of the bigger picture. No. I think that if you throw a punch, you must care deeply about this other person.
Well, it's an intimate act. I'll give you that. And I got in many fights as a kid. And a number of them ended up in a good friendship. Or some of them were with somebody that I had been friendly with, and then we had a fight, and then we got friendly again.
Right. Andrew Cuomo said to a state trooper who he was toying with, I like a woman who can feel pain. That was one of the items that came out. Andrew Cuomo was hitting on a state trooper, a female state trooper. There's another story where he removed from below her breast a sticker that had her name on it. So he touched her breast, and she was part of his security detail. And then he walked over to her husband and gave him the sticker and said she's probably going to need this. That's pretty obvious what he's doing, right?
What he's doing is getting totally insanely carried away by his perceived power. and he does not have an internal governor, and there's no external governor either because he's the governor.
I have a
He needs a lieutenant governor.
Yeah, whatever.
we were discussing this yesterday on the phone. I mentioned that a friend of mine who
Wait. You talked to your father and we didn't podcast it? Wait, you have conversations with your father?
it was pre-taped. It was a pre-tape. And
Okay, you'll have to send me the recording.
Yeah, we'll post it on the website. So I have a friend who worked as like a policy advisor for the governor a number of years ago. And after all this came out, he told me a crazy anecdote, which I won't say who he is, but this was an example of what the doctor was just saying, how the guy is not only carried away with his own power, but just he doesn't really have a sense of other people, I think. He's sociopathic, it seems to me, or megalomaniacal in this way where everyone else is just a prop or a minor player in the drama in which he stars. So here's what was happening. At a social event, the governor was telling a story that involved some sort of physical altercation. It's like when people are telling you about their karate class and they can't resist actually hitting you, maybe not full force, but they want to demonstrate it. So whenever anyone starts talking about karate, I walk away. I just don't like those stories. I've learned that. You can explain what a headlock is without demonstrating it. It's not a hard thing to do. People just don't know that. They think you have to. We were learning roundhouse kicks. Okay, just use your words. Use your words. Keep your feet on the floor. So in this instance, the governor was telling a story that involved, and he said, and then the guy put his hands around the guy's throat. This is the governor talking. He literally put his hands like he was going to murder him around my friend's throat. They were standing there having drinks without, asking him or anything. My friend said it was the most bizarre, just uncomfortable, disturbing situation. The governor's just telling a story to get some laughs or to entertain people. Meanwhile, he just literally got his hands on the throat of someone who works as a policy advisor for him. So he's a maniac.
What do you think that is about? Is it an excuse to put his hand? The whole purpose of the story was to put his hands around that guy's throat.
No. The purpose of the story is to self-aggrandize and be the life of the party, and to have everyone looking at him and applauding and laughing or whatever it is. And anyone in his midst is just a prop. He's like Carrot Top, and my friend was in his trunk of toys.
Well, I'll ask you this question, Ethan, and then we'll check with your father.
Yeah.
Is it a power play when he is touching these women, whispering "Ciao, Bella," telling, this is the kind of sex I like? Is this sexual? Is he trying to score with these women? Or is he pushing them away?
I think he's...
Because we're not hearing any stories of women who had a non-consensual sexual relationship with them, are we?
Well, he's groping and he's grabbing people's butts. As I liked when the Attorney General said the word butt. I was wondering...
I kept saying the word butt, yeah.
It was interesting that's become the term of art for these types.
Yeah.
But anyway... it's an interesting point you raise. As a psychoanalyst, maybe the doctor could weigh in, because you're saying he's actually
your colleague. You refer to your
colleague,
father,
my junior colleague, who I think he has a future in this business. You're doing exactly what these guys in the doctor's business like to do. They like to tell you why the thing that looks like X is actually negative X. So can you expound on that a little, Doctor? In fact, Cuomo is expressing maybe he's just afraid of intimacy and of sexual contact. So he has these elaborate strategies that look like macho Don Giovanni-esque behavior, but in fact, he's just pushing them away so that he doesn't have to encounter the female body.
It makes perfect sense as a possibility. But we would need the governor here lying on his back on a couch to hear from him what exactly it is. This could be terror of women. It could be ways to push them away. On the face of it, it's sexual. But who knows? He's a
We
very,
could put him on the couch and then put a woman next to him on the couch
right.
and then see what happens. I think he's pushing them away.
Because
I
mean, you're right, because he's a decent looking guy. He's smart. He's got a powerful office. So you would think if a guy like that wants to get laid, he'd have plenty of opportunities without alienating people.
The problem is he's hung like a possum.
But wait a second. How do you know what a possum looks like?
Well, I'm here in the woods. I've been here for a year and a half, David.
Now,
I've been doing some
have
research.
said before Viagra, I have said my penis is playing possum.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
But I don't know how big a possum is. I was just saying, he's just, don't worry. He's just playing possum with you.
I pictured when you mentioned the governor on the couch, I had this idea. Have you ever treated anyone, well, this to either of you, have either of you ever treated anyone who had a security detail? So while the patient is lying on the couch, the right sort of neck behind you in your chair, there's two Secret Service guys. I like that idea.
Power. This is a cliche, but I think it's worth investigating. Was he feeling power that he could get away with it? Or was he I know this is a cliche,
Yeah.
but was he feeling powerless? And is that why he treated the women that way?
Well, he's feeling both. I mean, again, we don't have him here, so
Right.
we could speculate, but it makes sense that he feels power on one level because he's the governor and he can act like a complete jerk. But getting back to my other point, if you really feel so powerful, you don't have to use your office to sport.
Right.
Go anywhere and meet anybody.
Well, I want to ask you about memory, and I want to ask you about back pain, but first, I want to ask you about some fact checking. When you have somebody like Andrew Cuomo, whose father is Mario Cuomo, and you're doing the job that your father did, it's destined not to end well. There are too many Freudian speed bumps to sabotage. True.
I can't think of an example of that being pursued in a healthy way, of the son going for that. I mean, elected office, sure. Like I can't think of it, but it's hard. It's always very fraught. Someone going into their parents' business.
You're trying to take over my business every time you have this show. What are you talking about?
And it's not going well.
Exactly. That's exactly my point. This is case in point. Yeah.
When you go into your father's business and do the same job that he did,
Or she.
but now I'm going to go with him.
Yeah, I guess. That's probably the one instance where you don't have to say or she. Yeah.
Yeah, and George W. Bush, I talked about this earlier. You're doomed from the start because you have to do better than your father. It's not good enough for you to do your father's job and just be okay at it. And so then you're forcing it. And when you start forcing it, you invade the wrong country.
Unless you have to do worse than your father.
You mean if you're compelled to do that? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. That's an equal possibility. I would say that, yes, of course, there are these potential speed bumps, but I don't agree that it means it's destined for failure.
Is going into
Who is that? Ken Griffey Jr. Quite a good baseball player.
How about Barry Bonds? Look what he had to do to outdo Bobby Bonds.
Oh, look at that.
That didn't end well.
Yeah.
He tried so hard. Yeah. Generally speaking, if you're not in therapy, can a father and a son or a father and a daughter, can parents work with their children successfully? Like Russ and Daughters, is that successful? Russ and Daughters is successful.
It's a little bit fishy. I find it's no, that's a good
That's a good example of Russ. But we don't know if they're Russ's daughters. It's just Russ and daughters. It could be somebody else.
Someone else. That's very good point. Yeah.
I think it's his daughters.
It is his daughters.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, it's easier, like Hugh Hefner and Chrissy Hefner, like the daughter and the father working together. There's probably less. I'm going to kill your video, Alan. We're running 15 minutes behind schedule. I'm having trouble with this patient. They're in crisis, and please, I hope you understand. So,
Go ahead.
generally speaking, it's better for a father and a daughter. Professor Harvey J.K., my patients are in crisis right now, so I'm giving them a little extra time. So I'm going to turn your video off.
I wanted to share something with you.
Yes.
This is out of left field. This has nothing to do with what we're talking
Professor Ann Lee just said, our patients is in crisis.
about. That's funny. I wanted to ask your advice, your professional
Yes.
advice as an entertainer.
Talking your father or me?
Both of you. So tomorrow I have to self-tape 2 auditions, and I have.
By the way, Malcolm Gladwell gave
Yes.
you a big plug.
I know that was very funny, and I think it was almost like a joke because it was so hyperbolic as to read as a joke. So in that episode of his podcast where my voice is alongside Jodie Foster and Glenn Close and Britt Marling and Dak Shepard, he literally gave me top billing in that. He said, this episode has some big stars, and then my name was first, which was very funny and but very flattering.
The people, Dak Shepard,
Dak Shepard,
genius. The man is a genius.
Britt Marling.
I do the post Dak Shepard podcast. Armchair expert. I do like a wrap up.
Oh wow! Because he was on Zoom. He was on. Okay, he was on Zoom record. He was very, very funny. Anyway, yeah. So Glenn Close is on there, and Jodie Foster, and Britt Marling, who wrote the episode, who wrote the Little Mermaid Redux. Anyway, it's very fun. Very fun to be part of that. That was.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
They're in good company.
Well, thank you. I'm flattered again. I'm very susceptible.
Malcolm Gladwell. What's it talking?
I'm very susceptible to flattery, by the way. It's not one of my better qualities, but it's very, very susceptible to it. So I'm an easy mark. Like if you wanted to,
But may I just say something, if I may?
defraud me or whatever.
I just want to say, Dr. Philip Hirschenfeld, of all the people I know, your son is the most susceptible to flattery. There's nobody more easy to manipulate than your son. And I love that about him. Go ahead.
I appreciate that. Well, I don't know what the hell I was. Oh yeah. So tomorrow I have a very tricky thing on my plate. I have 2 auditions that I have to self-tape and submit by 9 p.m. In one of them, I play a Pakistani American guy. And thank goodness they don't want an accent, so they don't want to go into that cliche. He's a Pakistani American guy in a kind of action film who then helps his neighbors to some firearms to fight off some bad guys.
Is that more? Are you allowed? Are you an American? You have to give that part to either a Pakistani or an American, right?
I feel like it is cultural appropriation, at least in one, maybe in several ways. But I'm happy for the work if I get the work. Right. So I have to do that audition, and then I have to, in a sort of comedy, play like a bumbling cop in another thing. So here's my plan. I want to see if it works for you. I'm thinking of doing the Pakistani American guy who has to be in his 50s or 60s. I'm going to leave the beard because it has quite a bit of gray to be convincing in that. And then I was going to, for the later audition, shave to a mustache for the cop. That's my big plan for the day. By the way, it's not like Stanislavski. It's not method. It's not my method. It's all about facial hair. That's it. My whole approach, like De Niro could gain 40 pounds and Jake Gyllenhaal can lose 40 pounds. I can shave. That's my technique. That's how deep I'm willing to go. Literally skin deep. That's how deep I will go with my characterization. But do you think that makes more sense? Does that make sense?
Isn't that how the British approach it? You put on the costume and let it inhabit you instead of...
Well, I actually did my first acting school experience in London. Maybe that's where I got that.
Well,
anyway,
I think with the cop.
Tell me about the cop. Is it a cliche to go with the mustache? Help me out.
I don't think a beard. I think getting rid of the beard.
No beard for a cop.
Yeah, the beard for a cop is just absolutely not. Right.
Serpico maybe has a beard, but he's like undercover.
Who's that?
Serpico.
Oh, Serpico. That's right. That's 70s cop. Or if I'm like a rabbi within the NYPD.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But you have to think about what kind of mustache.
Right.
You need a mustache that will enhance your bumbling.
So not a handlebar and not a Hitler. Somewhere in between.
What would Stan Oliver? What kind of mustache?
That was a Hitler mustache.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. They did. That's interesting. They shared that.
How about a Handler mustache? If you're going to play a bumbling cop, though,
Yeah.
you have to. Would you play him? Like I've been told, if you're going to play drunk, you play it so you're trying purposefully not to be drunk. Right?
Exactly. This guy thinks he's got a lot on the ball. He thinks he's asking very smart questions, and very stupid things are coming out of his mouth. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
That's how you're supposed to play drunk, I've been told, unless you're really amazing.
right.
Like
I had a very fun audition Monday where I had to play a charlatan medium, like a.
Are there any other kind?
Good point. That's a good point. But in this, well, I guess in the context of the film, sometimes they can be real. Like Whoopi Goldberg, wasn't she in that movie?
You're saying she's a mountebank? You're saying Whoopi Goldberg is a fraud? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm referring to the Patrick Swayze vehicle, Ghost.
Ghost.
Yes.
Yes.
So anyway, but it was a similar thing where the big question as the actor in that moment was, does this guy know he's a fake? Or is it just the person, his client, who's calling him out as a fake? It was more fun to play him as an actual fake. Any case.
Where he doesn't know he's a fake, or
yeah, where he kind of thinks he's really getting into it. He really thinks he's hearing stuff from the deceased friend of the client.
Let me ask go ahead, doctor.
How about, to really emphasize your bumbliness, half a mustache? That sort of advertises the bumbles come you on.
I think,
you know what? I might try that.
I think half a mustache would indicate that he's a Biden Democrat. I think that would be so. A couple quick questions. Charlatans, con artists, mountebanks. Again, it's fluid. I know they're very, spectrums. But when you see, in general, people who are, there are 14 people with some kind of degree who are responsible for something like 80% of the anti-vax information that's spread.
Right. I read that. Yeah.
There's a Dr. Tenpenny, who was Miss Moneypenny's aunt from James Bond, and she has a license to kill, apparently. Help me, I'm just lost in puns. So are you a better charlatan? Are you a better snake oil salesperson if you actually believe your quackery?
Absolutely. Really good charlatans they're not choosing to be this way. They have very severe ego defects. where they don't actually know who they are, and they can sort of morph themselves into whoever they're going to morph themselves into. Like the guy in Catch Me If You Can. Remember that movie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Leonardo DiCaprio. He was great in that movie, and people who can do that really well are not normal.
Right.
I think actually it is a smaller degree of that ingredient is what makes a good actor.
Yes, that's
That
right.
ability, the desire to just put on that other costume, be that other person, and inhabit it fully. It lets you do something that you can't do otherwise.
When you, Dr. Hirschenfeld, do you watch Fox News? Do you watch Newsmax?
I don't, because I'm afraid that every time I click onto them, they'll get another point in some kind of a rating.
Right.
Well, maybe I've done it 3 times in 5 years, maybe that much. For some story I really want to look at.
You were, as a child, you were in fistfights.
I was. Yeah.
And you tasted, it's not a pleasant experience, but you've tasted
My own book, yes.
You've tasted your own blood, and you've tasted the fire to hurt another. I hope it was another man. Please don't. So, do you debate? If you had a debate, Tucker Carlson, a mountebank.
Yeah.
He's at least I hope, he's meeting with Orban, the leader of Hungary now. I hope he's a charlatan. I hope he doesn't believe what Orban believes. Would you go for the jugular if you were put in a position where you had to debate politics with Jim Jordan or Paul Gosar? Would you use the ammunition that you do have and take them out?
You were done?
No. Something more powerful. Your box of tissues, Doctor.
I'm not sure I have anything like people imagine I might that would be so powerful. I once had a very smart colleague, and we went on a visit to a drug rehab center in the ghetto. And he was walking down the street, and some 6-year-old little African-American kid comes up to him and starts cursing him out like you can't believe. And the guy used such a weapon. I had mixed feelings about him doing this. He looks at this poor little kid and he says, "You must be very frightened." And the kid's face just crumbled. He started crying and ran home. Now, as I say, I think that was unfair. It was a little sadistic, maybe.
If it were Judd Hirsch and ordinary people, he would hug the kid then and say, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault. That's a fly, not a floater. Just checking."
And then it was an exact replica of that scene in when
Goodwill.
Robin Williams hugs Matt Damon. Yeah, it's not your fault. Same scene.
Yeah. Now, how many times did you accidentally walk into your father's office?
Every week, he's hugging a guy saying it's not your fault. It was just, yeah. And one time I walked in there, he's hugging a guy. He couldn't remember the line. I was like, "It's not your fault." I had to hold up a cue card. It's not. And he didn't have his glasses, so it's not on one card, and the next card said, "Your fault."
when you get angry, when there are, when Trump, I remember, Doctor, when it wasn't certain that Trump was going to lose, and I remember you being angry and fearful. Do you have fantasies about using your skills? Don't you think you could fillet these people like these chronic liars? And don't you want to humiliate them?
I really don't think it's possible. I mean, their defenses they're honed over an entire lifetime. You can't get through to them.
There's a great tape. I should play it. I don't have it. Jamie Raskin, the congressman from Maryland, a former Nader's Raider. He was part of the impeachment trial. He was an impeachment manager, and he is now on the select committee on the Capitol riot. And he was interrogating this Congressman Clyde, who's a Republican, a former police chief, I believe, from Georgia. And there's video of Clyde putting chairs up against the doors to keep the insurrectionists from coming into the House of Representatives. And then he witnessed it firsthand. He, a week later, he called them just your typical tourists going through Washington, D.C. And there's video, I'll play it next week for you, of Jamie Raskin, a Nader's Raider, brilliant man, cross-examining this guy. And I'm watching it thinking, this is as good as it gets in terms of a Perry Mason moment. But Clyde, nothing. Never, just wouldn't back down. You can't win with these people.
Oh, yeah. That's correct. I have a fantasy, I don't know if this is true, that somebody from an Oxford debating team might be able to do a better job.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, this
I don't
was,
think
I was going to ask you about, very quickly, back pain.
Yeah.
On a scale from 1 to 100, most back pain? A friend of mine has back pain. Is it me? Am I causing the back pain?
It could be. I mean, knowing you for a while, I could see that. Listen, I had real back pain. I had a huge surgery for it because I had multiple bulging discs, and it worked. My back has been perfect now for 40 years.
Right.
A lot of it is stress.
So if somebody says I'm a pain, excuse me for 1 second, Ethan. If somebody calls me, says you're a pain in the back, that means I'm improving, right? I'm less annoying, right? Anatomically speaking, I've matured. Ethan, I interrupted you.
No. I just wanted to say, I had really bad back pain 10 years ago. It was definitely stress-induced, but I got a book that really helped. I'm going to plug it. Healing Back Pain Naturally by Dr. Art Brownstein. A lot of good exercises. Really worked. Healing back pain naturally. And it's not like new agey. It's just yeah.
Get the Kindle version. I made the mistake of ordering the book, and I bent down to pick it up when it arrived.
It's very heavy.
Don't ask. Dr. Hirschenfeld, this was great. This was,
Glad you thought so, David.
Ethan,
God
thank
bless.
you.
God bless.
Thug Jew, thank you. So great.
Bye.
See you soon.
Bye. Thank you.